Uh-oh, make sure your microphone's unmuted. Hey, Natalie, what's up?
I was so good how to get started. You guys, welcome to the show. My name is Natalie. We are going to talk all things sales, marketing, and helping you win the game, but a very special topic today. Clearly, I'm really excited. I was ready to jump right in. We're talking about overcoming sales burnout with purpose, and this is a topic that probably will really strike and hit home with a lot of people. And so there is no one better to be sitting here with than Greg Ross himself to lead this one and guide us through it for anyone who's been there, who needs help overcoming it, who's there right now. Greg, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm excited. This is one of my favorite subjects because I know how much we'll be able to help people by talking about this. And honestly, a topic that's not frequently discussed among salespeople.
No, it's really not. A lot of the times you can see tons of coaching and training and tips, but a lot of people don't realize it starts with your mindset and how you take care of you and what's going on in your head. And so this is really a whole different side of the spectrum that you really don't see on social media. You don't see a lot of people talk about. And so I know that this is really going to speak with people today, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. And if you're tuning in, we're going to give you a lot of good pointers on how to avoid and overcome, overcome. We're going to help you overcome sales burnout. You are going to grab sales burnout by the horns and take it to the mat. So we're going to give you some really great advice on how to do that. It's going to be really, really good to see.
I love it. Let's dive in. Let's just get started with the most obvious. When does sales burnout typically occur?
Yeah, so I've trained tons of salespeople and SDRs, and I've noticed that sales burnout tends to happen in a few key areas, right? One is very early in the career. If you have a salesperson that either just started in their role from sales or they just got promoted from being an SDR, or I call them an XDR because there's so many different variations of that, but they just got promoted from being an XDR, or they came from the marketing team or some other function into sales, that can be a period of time when burnout can occur. Also, if you've been with the same company longer than 2 to 3 years and you start kind of living that Groundhog Day over and over again, where it's the same music waking you up every morning, you're going to the same sales kickoffs and things start to get stagnant and a little monotonous, right? You can get burnout. And late in the career, there's a lot of people that they've spent quite a long time in sales, 10, 20 years in sales, but they're not keeping up with technology. They're not keeping up with new methods and techniques, new approaches, which you really have to. You got to stay on top of your game because it's always changing.
Yeah.
And, that can lead to burnout because you're not feeling the success anymore, right, in the role. So those are kind of the 3 key areas where I see it typically most often.
But let's take it deeper then. Absolutely. Those are all great points. But why? Why does it occur?
When we're talking about newbies, we're talking about people that it's their first time in sales, or they came from an SDR or a marketing role to be a quota carrying sales rep. A lot of times they just don't have the fundamental prerequisite skills to be a sales rep, right? I mean, if you're an SDR, you might be really good at building pipeline, making cold calls, sending emails, social connections on LinkedIn. But now when you come into the sales role, you're carrying a quota, you're managing that relationship with the prospects. There's so much to that game. It's like adding another 200% to what you need to know. So
Stressful. Yeah.
that's what, one of the areas I see most often. They just haven't developed the prerequisite skills to be successful, so they get discouraged.
Hmm.
When it comes to monotony, after you've been with a company for a while, I see this happen after like the third year. If you've been there for 3 years, you start to get the hang of it. It becomes routine. And some people want that, but for me, it's a lack of challenge. And then I get bored with it, right? So then when we see people that have been around for a while, they see that lack of success. They're not getting the conversion rates they want to. They used to go to President's Club. They're not making it anymore. I've had to have refresher sessions where we get in and we're like, clear. We gotta
Yes.
shot life back into this person, get them back like on top of their game, teach them some new cutting edge strategies, and really help them like get caught up to speed.
I love that. Those are all amazing points. I mean, one, you get overwhelmed with stress. You're in it. You're in a new role. You're, again, very early in your career. And then you realize like you're under a lot of pressure. And then you can transition into something where you feel like your life is just almost on repeat. And so you really do. You need that defibrillator to like really re-energize your game. But
Yes.
I mean, here's the part where I really want to dive into. I want you to really speak to people here. How can someone prevent or overcome sales burnout? Because that's why we're all here today. Like, speak to people's heart. Let's hear it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of burnout that's happening right now because the economy's not great, right? You've got people that are getting laid off left and right. And honestly, selling becomes a challenge during a recession or when the economy's bad. If you've never read it, there's a book called The Challenger Sale. It's a book that was written during the recession back in 2008, I think,
Yeah.
where they actually studied what makes salespeople more effective. But the reason that book was such a hit was because it really turned sales on its head, and it had to. It was so challenging and difficult to sell during a recession. So we have a lot of that perfect storm that's happening now. And I think that, burnout, discouragement, whatever you want to call it, is at an all-time high right now in the sales profession. So one of the big things, I have kind of like three main points. One of the big things is to be proactive, right? A world chess champion isn't great because they know how to play chess necessarily better than anybody else when it comes to the moves they're making. A world chess champion becomes great because they're able to see 15 or 30 moves ahead. That's what really
That's
makes
good.
somebody a champion chess player, right? It's the same way in sales. You have to learn how to see ahead. You have to learn how to see the game that lays out before you. And you have to be really proactive to set yourself up for success, right? The same thing applies when you're making a career transition. You're going from SDR to being a sales rep, or you've been around for a while and you need to keep your skills sharp. You need to really be proactive. You need to be looking ahead. You got to develop those foundational skills and really constantly be working your fundamentals.
Yeah.
That's going to help you prevent a lot of the discouragement and burnout if you have the skills to be successful.
Well, absolutely. And that's something when you say, develop those fundamental skills, a lot of the time people they're searching for silver bullets. They're looking to get their magic Midas touch back. But really it's sticking with the fundamentals and what works, right?
Yes. And like if you're an SDR and you're thinking about becoming an account executive, making that leap, right? Why would you wait until you get the job to start learning the fundamental skills? Like if you're really serious about that, you should start training now on those fundamental skills, discovery questions, objection handling, right? Command and control through the process, how to get the, whole project management side down after they give you the verbal onto the signature, right? There's a lot of skills there. Take the initiative, be proactive, start building those foundational skills before you get the job. It'll help you in the interviews and it'll prevent you from getting burnout once you get into the role.
I love it. I think a lot of the times when people think of burnout or they're experiencing it, learning the fundamentals or really like harnessing those. I don't think that's something that comes to people's mind, but a lot of the time, people can experience burnout because of, again, like you said, monotony, but also because it feels like you're scrambling. You're looking for something to help you get your game back or get on your A game, whatever it may be. And your A game is your tools. It's the things that you should know and learn. And so I love that that's one of these points because that's a major cornerstone.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the second thing that I recommend, I want to kind of use an example that I think everyone can relate to.
Yep.
So, Natalie, do you remember that moment when you were a child and you're going somewhere with your parents and you lost sight of them? Like you don't know where your parents went and you kind of had that like flustered, kind of panicky feeling like, oh no, where'd my parents go? What am I doing? Where am I? Right? Like this happens to like every little kid at some point in their life. And we usually remember it our entire life because it was such a harrowing thing.
It's traumatizing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because we have to keep our eyes focused on our parents when we're kids, so we understand where we are, right? We know that we're in a place where we're safe and everything. The same thing applies in sales, right? If you come into sales without a plan and you're, out there and you lose your bearing on where you're headed and what you need to do to get there, you can feel you'll feel it. That same feeling starts to set in where you start panicking every day. You come in, you're not as effective, you don't know how to get yourself caught up. You don't know what you changed that made things worse or what to change to make it better, right? And if you don't make a plan and work your plan, and I mean be like rigorously working your plan every single day, it's easy to get lost in the mega mall of sales, right?
Absolutely.
Without your bearing on where you're going, and it's easy to let that panic. And when that panic sets in, that's when you get discouraged. That's when you start to burn out.
Yeah, well, that's what I feel. Even just you describing the situation, it kind of brings like these emotions of anxiety because there's no clarity there, and that makes a big difference when you have clarity. You know where you're going, then you know the things you need to be doing. And so that lack of clarity, not having a plan in place, that makes a big difference.
Absolutely. All right. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to go into the realm of motivation.
Oh, I
Okay.
love this. Okay.
Yeah, me too. And it's kind of funny because I follow a lot of sales coaches and trainers that are out there on LinkedIn, on social media. I'm always kind of looking to see what they're doing. And I saw one of them recently post something and she said, I don't focus on motivation. You only get sales training pointers from me on sales skills. Well, that was a shock to me because honestly, if you've been in sales any length of time, it's a mental game. Sales is 90% psychology. It really is.
Absolutely.
And the salespeople that I train, they're like athletes, right? And you're an athlete, so you understand this. When you come into play, right, you have to be 110%. You got to be on your A game, right? You can't have bad days. The same's true in sales. You have to come in with that mindset that you're ready to take on the world, that you're ready to do whatever it takes. You're going to fight through that rejection, right? You're going to fight through the discouragement. And in order to do that, you really need to tap into something deeper than just making money, something deeper than just making your boss happy, something deeper than just like paying your bills. You got to reach deep and you got to find your personal why. This is very important.
That's so good. It's your driving factor. It really is. And on the bad days, because bad days, they're going to happen. It's inevitable. But the difference is when you take care of your mindset, you pour into yourself and you realize that it really, a lot of it does start all up here. It's being able to get back on your feet and you're a fighter and you show up because you know your worth and you believe in yourself. And that makes a big difference, knowing your worth and knowing what you're capable of. And I mean, that's a big thing. So your driving factor, your why.
Mhm.
Um, how does that contribute? How does all that play into this?
Yeah, so you really need to be able to see where that little point of light that keeps you motivated in everything that you do, right? I talk a lot about this with my sales coaching students. So for me, it's pain in my life. That's what keeps me motivated, right? I grew up in poverty. I had to scrap and fight for everything that I've ever done. And I had a divorce happen in my family when I was a kid, and it really impacted me, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like pain there that caused me to have this resolve to be successful and to make a path to success for myself. And in sales, sales was my vehicle to do that. I don't have a college degree, differentiates me from like 99% of the sales people and sales trainers out there in tech. But because I was intelligent and willing to work hard, I focused laser hard on that desire to lift up out of the place I was at and to make a decent living for myself and my family. And I was able to do that. But you got to have that A lighthouse it's just a tourist attraction during the day, right?
Right.
But at night, when things get dark, that light is what guides you into the harbor, right? And you got to have that point of motivation. And by the way, I talk to people all the time. They say, well, I didn't have a lot of pain in my childhood. I didn't have those experiences where I had to like push through and figure out a way to be successful. It doesn't have to be that. It could be something really positive that you're focused on. It could be a dream, a goal, some purpose that you have in your life, right? And so it doesn't have to be negative. It can be something positive, but you got to have something that you can focus on long distance, that you can keep your path straight and make sure that you're working towards at all times.
Yeah, no, I love that you brought that up because that was you beat me to it because I was about to say, well, not everybody has that negative experience to rely on to and put or have that behind them and be pushing them forward. So that why that deep motivational thing like that's in your heart, that's in your soul, that fiery passion, that has to be something that drives you to want more for yourself in the future. And you can't lose sight of that. Like the lighthouse, you need that there. Everybody does, no matter what your past is. You have to have an idea of what you want your future to look like. And so you can work towards that and you can build it and create that for yourself.
Yeah. And, just like the ship that's trying to come into the harbor at night, if you don't have your eyes on that lighthouse, you're going to crash into the rocks. The same is true in sales, right? So that purpose, that why, that strong, I call it an origin story.
Yes.
It basically keeps you moving. It's the common thread that keeps you going, that helps you push past the discouragement. If you haven't tapped into that, you have to. This is like step number one to being in sales. Take a long weekend, go off in the forest somewhere, sit down and think about your life, get really introspective and figure out what is that thing that motivates you? What really motivates you? Who are you? What are your goals? What do you really want out of life, right? And if you can focus on that, that's going to prevent a lot of the discouragement, a lot of the burnout from happening. You'd be amazed what that will keep you kind of going through.
Oh, because it's something that you cannot let go of. It's something you want your why to be so like embedded into you that it keeps you up at night because you want it so bad. It drives you. But something that you said that really caught my attention that I kind of want to hit on is that you said that you use sales as a vehicle. And I think that's really amazing. And that's something that maybe people don't they don't see it that way or they lose sight of it. Talk a little bit more about that. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So, the other area where I see a lot of discouragement happen is when people view sales the wrong way, right? The role of their sales career in an inappropriate way in their life, right? So we work in sales, but sales is not who you are. Okay. Let's just like get that out of the way right now. Sales does not define you. If it does, that's sad because you are so much more than your career, right? You have a purpose. I believe everyone's been given a purpose. Everyone is working towards that purpose in their life, right? Sales is just a sales career is a vehicle to help you accomplish that purpose, that dream that you have in your life, right? And that dream is possible. But you know what helps that dream? If you make a lot of money and you can fund it, right? If you develop some critical leadership skills like negotiation, influence, right? Asking good questions, a lot of these skills that come from sales training and a sales career, guess what? Those are leadership skills. They're not even necessarily about sales, right? So if we can harness that power of sales, but not let sales consume us, then we can prevent ourselves from being easily burnt out. And so I tell everyone, don't make sales your entire life, okay? Never, ever put your sales career before your family. Your family always comes first, right? Don't ever get emotionally attached to your sales job. Don't ever walk out of that, office feeling depressed and down. But there's a caveat here, but you got to go in and you got to play 110% every day, right?
I love that.
If you went in and you played 50%, yeah, walk out of there with your head down, right?
Yeah.
But if you go in there and you play 110% every single day and you truly do your best, then it's just a matter of improving your game and you'll get better results. You should never allow it to discourage yourself. Sales is just a game that we're trying to win. We're trying to win it because it becomes the vehicle that kind of like catalyst that helps our dream become a reality, our
I love
greater
that
purpose.
so much, and that's literally it encompasses everything. It embodies the whole entire concept. Sales is not your identity; it is your vehicle to take you towards the life that you want to create, and all the things that you learn in the process. You're becoming this person that you need to be to step into that next level version of yourself and achieve those things. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really like that's one of the things that also will give your life purpose,
Yep.
okay? If I ask you, what's your purpose in your life? And your answer to that is the value proposition for the software you're selling, you're on the wrong track, okay? You got to figure out what is your purpose in life, right? Where are you headed? How are you going to make an impact? Because you'll get to the end of that a life lived that way, and you won't have a lot to show for it other than the money that you made. So
Mm,
that money has to go towards something. It
yeah.
has to be your vehicle that you use to accomplish your goals and your dreams.
I love that. And so, I mean, it's really not hanging your hat on your quota. It's creating something more for yourself. I think that's such an important aspect.
Yeah, and this is where I see a lot of people make a big mistake. So this what I'm about to tell you is so counterintuitive. You're going to like I'm sure if you're watching this right now, you're going to be like, "What?" And you're going to consider hitting that red button. Okay, don't do it. Just hear me out. When you're new in sales, you should not be focused on your quota.
Ooh.
And if you've been in sales for a while, you should not be focused on your quota. I know they tell us the quota is really important, but hear me out on this. When got my first job in sales, okay, my first account executive role at a large company, um, my goal was to come in and work 110% every single day, to put in as much activity as I could, make as many cold calls as I could. And I thought if I do that, then I'll be successful, right? Because my dream was what was motivating me, not the quota, right? So I did that. I went in and I worked 110%. And my VP of sales got so frustrated with me. Hey, if you're watching this, because he'd ask me, like, how close are you to quota? And I'm like, I don't even know. I wasn't even looking. I have no idea. But at the end of the first year of my first sales role, I did over 200% of my quota. And I could care less about where I was percent to goal all year long because I had a blindfold on. I'm not focused on little minutia or whatever, or to put it a different way, I'm focused on the horizon, right? I'm looking out at where I wanted to go instead of these little like arbitrary numbers.
Right.
And if you just give 110% every day, you'll make it to goal and you'll exceed goal and you'll find that you're much more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
I love that. I don't even know how you talk what you just said. It's such a powerful thing. You have to fall in love with your potential and working towards becoming that person every single day. And if you have a bad day and you walk out, as long as you know that you gave 110%, you're going to walk into the building tomorrow and you're going to be driven to do better than you did yesterday. And that's the key. It's keeping your eye, like you said, on the horizon and working every single day your absolute hardest and knowing that you are mastering the fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, remember, I said if you've been in sales for a while, you shouldn't be focused on your quota. Now, that's the other side of the coin. So once you've been in sales for a while, you should start to figure out your own numbers. Sales should become like a math equation. You should know how many cold calls, emails, social touches it takes to get a discovery meeting, how many discovery meetings it takes to get demos booked, how many demos it takes to get proposals, how many proposals it takes to get signatures on contracts. And it becomes like a math equation, right? So if it becomes like a math equation, why would X equal your quota? Why wouldn't it equal the amount of money you want to make to accomplish your dream, right?
I love that. And if you know the fundamentals, it does. It becomes an equation of how you need to essentially work backwards to achieve that, right?
That's right. And you're not working backwards from achieving your quota, you're working backwards from achieving your dream, right? Which is a big difference. So
Bigger
if
picture.
if I know that my dream is to, do this and it's going to cost me $1 million, that's my goal, not quota, right? You can make as much money as you want in sales. So When salespeople decide to start having X be their dream instead of their quota,
That's a game.
that's when they go from being good to being great.
Whew, that is good. That is good right there. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to stop working your equation. You're not going to stop working through that goal until you can. It's the bigger picture. It's not the quota. Quota is something, again, that's something that where that burnout comes from. But when you're working towards your goal, you're not going to get burnout working towards your goal, because again, it starts within your heart and your soul, and it really pushes you to continue working towards that. This conversation was fire. Like,
It was good.
so good. Greg, for people who are watching this or who catch the replay, if this is something that spoke to them, where can they get more of you at?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So if you cue the ticker. So if you're watching this and you'd like to get more Greg Ross, then feel free to check out my YouTube channel at the Greg Ross, or you can find me on TikTok with the same handle. You can find me on LinkedIn, Greg Ross, Phantom Sales, and I'm happy to chat with you. And look, if you want to really master your game, if you want to learn how to put your dream in X as opposed to your quota, if you want to learn some fundamental skills because you're applying for a sales job versus being an SDR, and you want to become an account executive, call me. Go to my website, click the button to book a complimentary coaching session, and I'll be happy to help you achieve those goals. Okay, I'm at your service.
I love it. This was so good. So good. You guys take advantage of that. Get connected with Greg. It's something, if this spoke to you today, there's a reason why you watch the whole entire thing. This is your chance to really one up your game and step into that next level version of yourself. So thank you so much for tuning in. Greg, thank you again for another week where you hit it out of the park. If you are somebody who this is your first time catching the show with us, we show up weekly with brand new topics. So be sure, if you haven't, hit subscribe. And this is the show where we talk all things sales, marketing, and helping you win the game. Greg, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I really care about the people I coach. And if this conversation helps one person not burn out, then it's worth it. So hit me up, guys. We'll help you. And I'm glad that I could help you not get burnout in your sales career. Thanks, Natalie.
Next time, guys.